Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. We'll get started in a few minutes. Just going to give it a little bit for folks to join us. But thank you for being here. Super excited to share some more information about our fellowship with you. So we'll get started in just a few. Hey there, if you're just joining us, we're just giving it a few minutes for folks to join us and then we'll get started. So thanks for being here on time. Super excited to be sharing more in a few. I'm gonna give it about 1 more minute. We'll start at like 2 after the hour. So if you are joining us, just sit tight and we will get started in just a few. We just want to give folks a couple of minutes to join the session. If you're just joining, we're gonna get started in a few seconds here. We're just giving it a couple of minutes past the hour for people to join us. But appreciate you being here on time. Give it like 30 more seconds and then we will dive right in. Great. For the sake of getting started on time, I'm going to get started. Thank you so much for being here. This is Coding It Forward's 2025 Fellowship Information Session. This is the second of 3 info sessions we are hosting, and we are so glad that you are here today to learn a little bit more about our program. Applications are live and open, and so it's a really great time to be attending an info session to learn a little bit more before you start your own application. So going to dive right in, but before I get into content, I just want to flag for everyone that we will be using the Q&A feature in Zoom to answer any questions that you all have today. If you're not seeing it at the top or bottom of the screen, there's oftentimes a more button. If you click that, you'll see Q&A, but you should see it right at the bottom of your screen. Please use that feature to ask questions. You can also upvote other people's questions. So before you type in a fresh new question, we encourage you to go through the list of questions that have already been asked and answered so that you're not asking a repeat question. I will also encourage folks to just wait till the end of the information that I'll be sharing to ask questions. A lot of times the questions that you put in the chat 1 minute after I've started talking are questions that are going to be answered in the deck. So I'd honestly wait until we get to our alumni Q&A portion to ask any questions that you feel like are outstanding. So again, please use the Q&A feature. It'll make it easier for our team to answer questions. We'll try to answer as we go, but again, maybe sit tight until I kind of walk through the deck in case your questions are going to be answered in a few slides. And then we'll save some time at the end of all of this to answer any questions that have gone unanswered. But let's get started. So my name is Ariana Soto. I am Coding It Forward's co-founder and CEO, and I am so thrilled to be hosting today's info session so that all of you can learn a little bit more about our process. If you're just joining us, I said this a few minutes ago, but our applications are officially open and live. You can find the link to apply on our website. So we are super excited to dig into details today and answer all of your questions so that you can get to filling out that application. For those of you who are not super familiar with Coding It Forward, or you're just learning about us or just learning about our fellowship program, we are an organization focused on creating pathways into public interest technology for early career technologists. We've been around since 2017, and we've been running our fellowship program since 2017. We have placed many, many fellows in many, many government offices across the country, and I'll share some more details in a few slides about that. But today's info session is going to be about our 2025 fellowship program. Before I get into details, I want to give everyone a quick overview of what I'll cover today. So we'll go over some basics, overview, and logistics of our 2025 program and process, programming opportunities, what you get being a fellow as part of our program, alumni experience, a little bit about our alumni, what it looks like to be a part of our alumni network, the application process, which is probably the biggest reason all of you are attending today. And then we will also have an alumni Ask Me Anything, where we have three alums joining us today to kind of do a bit of a Q&A with our alums, and they're going to share with you their firsthand experience as alums in this program. So that's the agenda. Again, like I said before, we'll be using the Q&A feature to answer any questions that you all have. I'd strongly encourage folks to wait till I'm at the end of my slide deck to ask questions, because we will likely be covering a lot of the questions that you will have in this presentation. Great. The Coding It Forward Fellowship is a paid 10-week internship that empowers early career technologists to innovate in local, state, and federal government offices across the United States. Again, as I said, we've been running this fellowship since 2017. We continue to be one of the only opportunities for early career tech talent to work in government, and we are super excited that everyone here in attendance today is at least a little bit interested in applying to this program. Every year, this season is always the most exciting for our team, because we get to meet so many new folks who are excited about contributing their skills to government. So that's a high-level overview of the program. I wanted to give everyone a short list of the folks that we've worked with in the federal space and also the state and local space. This is not necessarily who we'll be working with in 2025. That list is still being finalized, but this is a list of folks that we've worked with in previous years' programs. So pretty lengthy list. We've worked with quite a few different local, state, and federal government offices since our founding. So this is just a sampling of what might be coming for our 2025 program. Great. Areas of practice. So when you apply to our fellowship program, you'll be asked to select one of the 5 areas of practice that you see on the screen. So cybersecurity, data design, product management, and software engineering. Typical tech roles that you will see when you apply, you'll be asked to select one of these. You cannot select multiple. So we always encourage candidates to select whichever one you believe you are most qualified for. So if you have some data experience and software experience, and you really have more skill sets and experience in software, we'd encourage you to apply for the software engineering position over the data position. So just keep that in mind when you're applying. You cannot select multiple. You'll have to apply to one of these. And so that's kind of who we recruit for. And then when our government partners come to us looking for fellows, they kind of also select one of these 5 areas of practice for which they want a fellow to join their team for. So that's kind of what kinds of fellows we recruit for our program. I wanted to share a couple of projects. I think this is always the most exciting piece for our team, is getting to see what our fellows get to work on during the summer. So these are just 3 of many, many projects that fellows have worked on in previous years. We had some fellows at the Bureau of Justice Statistics recently, analyzing immigration and law enforcement trends at the southwest border. We had folks in New York City creating a unified design system for public-facing digital products offered by the city. And then we had some folks at the Census Bureau developing an API for efficient public access to census international trade data sets. You'll get to hear from our alums, who will be speaking in a few minutes about the projects that they've worked on. And we can also visit our GitHub, which is on our website. If you go to our website, you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see the GitHub icon, and you can click on that, and you'll actually be able to see all kinds of projects. Any projects that we've been able to share publicly are on that GitHub. And yeah, you can poke around and kind of see what other projects fellows have worked on. This is just 3 of close to 700 projects that fellows have worked on, but wanted to just give you a highlight of kind of what those projects can look like. Cool. Eligibility slide. This is probably the most important slide of this presentation. So please pay attention to this slide. If you have questions after I go through this slide, please feel free to ask them. This information is also on our website for everyone to view. But this is really important, because we don't want you to go to our application and try to apply and then find out that you're not eligible. So please pay attention to this slide. You must live in the United States throughout the duration of the program, and you must be a US citizen or permanent resident to be eligible for our program. We place folks in government, and so that is a requirement of the program. At this time, international students are ineligible to apply, regardless of visa type or work authorization, CPT, OPT. Unfortunately, we cannot accept international students to the program this year. So you must be a US citizen or permanent resident. We don't have any exceptions to this, so please be mindful of that citizenship status as you listen to the rest of this information. Educational background, you must be enrolled in or recently graduated from an associate, bachelor's, master's, professional, or doctoral degree program. So you're either an undergrad or a graduate student, or you recently graduated from one of those programs, or you're a boot camp, you're a graduate or a current enrollee of a boot camp or certificate program, and that program must have a minimum program length of 3 months of live instruction. You graduate, you're either currently enrolled or you graduated no earlier than May 1st, 2024, and you must be at least 18 years old at the start of the program. So these are eligibility requirements. They're also on our website. There's also an eligibility screen on our application process. We don't want anyone going through this process who's not actually eligible for employment. So please be mindful of these things as you are applying, as you are considering applying, and please just know that we can't make any exceptions to these criteria. These are kind of the criteria and eligibility for this year's program. Some more details about the program, dates and location. The fellowship is 10 weeks long, as I mentioned earlier, and it'll take place from June 9th to August 15th. Those dates are set in stone. They cannot be changed. If you are part of a quarter system program that conflicts with these dates, we can work with you to make sure that you can do the program and finish your schooling. But other than that, you cannot change these dates. They are set in stone and are the dates of the program for next year. The fellowship is a full-time opportunity. You are expected to work during standard business hours. Undergraduate and bootcamp fellows make $20 an hour during the summer, and graduate students make $25 an hour. It is a paid internship opportunity, but it is also a full-time opportunity. So you must be able to commit to working full-time 40 hours a week during every single week of the 10 weeks of the program. Fellows will work remotely in the United States throughout the duration of the fellowship, but as I mentioned earlier, you must be based in the United States during the entirety of the fellowship. You cannot be vacationing in Europe. You cannot be vacationing in Mexico. We have to have you living and working in the United States, even though the program is remote. So please be mindful of that as you consider applying and going through our process. You have to be based for every single day of those 10 weeks in the United States. That is not because we don't want you to take a European vacation, but because we work with government. And so you are oftentimes working on a government computer or working with government data, and that is all very sensitive, and we can't have you taking that out of the country. So please be mindful of that as you think about applying as well. Programming. So outside of the work that you're doing full-time with that office during the 10 weeks, one thing that is really cool about our program is that it is a fellowship, and that we build a really strong cohort community around you during the 10 weeks of the program. And we do that in a number of different ways. One of those being through professional programming. So every week we have different events with leading technologists in this space. They'll share with you how they're building products and developing services and crafting policy around their work. You'll also have access to a mentor one-on-one and office hours with our team. So for many of our fellows, almost all of our fellows, it's their first time working in government. So no need to have prior government experience, but we do a lot to help you understand what government work looks like, how you can be successful, what career pathways look like for you after the program, really building a network and a community around you and making sure that you're really well supported in the work that you're doing during the summer. So we have professional programming, and then we also build out our cohort community by doing community events and giving you opportunities to meet and learn from your peers who are also a part of this program, hear what they're doing in their position at their government office. We'll host happy hours, trivia nights, give you the opportunity to really build a close network with the other folks who are also doing this program. So professional programming, community programming, mentorship, that's kind of all that also comes with the really incredible work that you'll get to do as a fellow. In addition to that, you'll do the 10 weeks of the program, you'll build community with the cohort that you are a part of, and then you'll join our alumni network that is now close to 700 fellows strong. We have placed close to 700 fellows at 80 offices across the country since the first iteration of our program in 2017. Our alumni are representative of all 50 states and over 160 academic institutions. All of our cohorts to date have been majority female, majority people of color, and it's a really incredible network of early career technologists who are excited about working in government, excited about figuring out what the next steps of their careers are. And since we've been doing this for a number of years now, we've got some really awesome alums from 2017 and 2018 who are well into their career paths at this point. And so it's a really awesome pool of people post-program to be able to tap into and build your network. So you'll build your network with your cohort community during the 10 weeks of the program, and then you'll enter our alumni community and have access to an even bigger network of folks who have done this program and who have kind of gone on to do all kinds of different really cool things in their career after our program. In addition to just that network, we also do programming for our alums. So we do one-on-one job and networking support. You can access our team after the program is done for that sort of thing. We do social events and happy hours and book clubs and really find ways to connect our alumni and make the experience of being a fellow continue well after the 10 weeks are said and done. So just another thing and a perk to look forward to post-program is being a part of this really cool alumni network. I wanted to share a couple of profiles of alums. You'll get to meet 3 of them in just a few minutes here. But these are 3 other alums who have gone on to continue working in social impact and government post-program. Over 50% of our alumni continue on in social impact and government full-time. So just a sampling of kind of what kinds of opportunities can be open to you after you do the 10 weeks of the fellowship program. And then some of the future careers that fellows pursue. So some fellows come back into government, some do social impact, some go into the private sector, graduate school. We've got a lot of connections in this space. And so really here to support you and connect you to whatever is next for you after the program is said and done. We'll share out this deck after the presentation, so no need to read through all of these different bullets. I know it's kind of a lengthy list, but you'll get these slides afterwards so you can kind of poke around and see a little bit more. Great. Going to share some details about the app process, and then we're going to hop to our alumni panel. But I know this is a really important piece of the process. So all of this detail is also on our website, but again, we'll share this slide deck with you after this info session. But the part of the application that just went live is that initial application that is now live on our website. And that is kind of what I will most be covering today. But you'll see the latter 3 bullets are kind of other pieces of our application process. So a certain subset of candidates after this initial application will be invited to complete an assessment. Certain subset of those candidates will be invited to a government office interview. And then a certain subset of those candidates will be offered a position in our 2025 cohort. But I'll dig into some details in the next couple of slides. So the application that is presently open, it closes on October 27th at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. So it will today's the 17th. It will only be open for another 10 days. It's a super short submission window. So if you are interested and excited about applying to this program, please don't miss this deadline. We cannot guarantee that you will be able to submit after the deadline. So please, please, please get your application in by the deadline that you see on the screen. The application is really short and sweet. It should not take you very much time. It'll include an eligibility check, which I mentioned earlier. That's just a brief questionnaire to make sure that you meet the minimum qualifications that we require. That's to save you from submitting an application only to find out that you are not eligible. Then there is a resume submission. You'll be asked to format a resume using our standardized resume template. It is linked for you in the application, but it is actually also already linked on our website. So if you're planning on applying, hop on over to our website, download that resume template and start formatting your resume so that when you go to submit your application, you already have that file ready to drop. We'll be asking you to use our resume template. And if you don't use our resume template, you will likely not be in consideration for the program. We're using a resume template this year to help our team learn more about your technical and leadership experiences, but also ensure a more equitable review process by standardizing the way that folks are submitting resumes to us. So please be mindful of that. that. And then there will be one short answer question, and we'll ask you to speak to your interest in the fellowship, a little bit about what public service means to you. We're not looking for a perfect answer. We want you to give us a response that is genuine to who you are and why you want to be a part of our program. Please don't just plug the short answer question into ChatGPT and then put that submission in the box. It's pretty easy for us to tell if someone has done that. So please take a second. It's just one short answer question. We really want to hear why you genuinely are interested in our program, and what public service means to you. So that's the application. It's a very short and sweet, should not take you very long. So please don't miss that deadline. What we're looking for, we are looking for folks who are technically proficient, folks who are mission driven, who are excited about helping our government better and more equitably serve the people that it is responsible to. We're looking for folks who are excellent communicators and independent problem solvers. And we're really looking for folks who are comfortable in navigating ambiguity. So again, no need for any prior experience in government. Most of our fellows have never worked in government before, but we are looking for folks who are going to be okay navigating ambiguous situations in the workplace, and just kind of comfortable with what comes with being in government. So that's kind of what we're looking for. And just a few more details about review criteria. So technical ability, when you are formatting that resume, make sure that you're demonstrating your abilities through any experiences you've had, internships, past projects, coursework. We want you to highlight your top skills, make it super clear to us what your technical skill sets are so that we can understand what your background and abilities are. We're looking for folks who have core value alignment. So those are the what we're looking for pieces that I just shared with all of you. That's what we mean by core values. These are kind of the 5 things that we are looking for in fellows. So make sure that you are highlighting these 5 items in your application process. That is that piece of the puzzle. And then things that are less important to our team, the prestige of your educational institution, the prestige of any previous internships that you've done. We don't care very much about grades or GPA or high school accomplishments. So do everything that you can to highlight your technical abilities and your genuine interest in our program specifically. And that is, I know so many of you are going to submit questions right now being like, what do I need to make it? Like, what are you looking for? This is what we're looking for. We're looking for you to show us your technical abilities. There's a range of technical abilities that we're looking for because different projects require different skill sets. So we don't have one cookie cutter technical ability that you need to meet. So do your best to highlight your technical abilities, the skills that are unique to you, how you've done past projects, if you've done past internships, all that good stuff. And then really be genuine about why you're interested in our program and what working in government might mean to you. Again, really easy for us to tell when folks have plugged our short answer into ChatGPT or anything of the sort. So that's what we're looking for genuinely. We really want to find folks who are excited about being a part of this program specifically and aren't just looking for any internship. And that's it. We're going to hop on over to our alumni Q&A. So I'm going to ask my alums to hop off video, and I'm going to pull down this slide deck right after I put your faces up so people can see who you are and where you're coming from. And then let me pull up my first question for you all. Would love if we could just start with a round of intros. I guess they can kind of see your names and what year you were and what office you worked at, so we'll spare you that. But if you could just introduce yourself and say what the project was that you worked on when you were a fellow, that'd be a great place to start. And Mahima, I'll send it to you first, and then if you can just popcorn to the other 2 once you're done, that would be awesome.
Yeah, sounds good. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. As it says, my name is Mahima. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I worked for the city of Charlotte, and the project I worked on was building a Wi-Fi finder tool for the city. They'd recently gotten a public grant to have Wi-Fi in public locations, but the main barrier to access was people didn't know where to find it. And so the biggest problem to solve was how do we get people to know where the location is? And so similar to kind of a store locator on any like Target app, we kind of built something similar to that. And it's in use today, which is something I'm really, really proud of. I will go ahead and pop it over to Drew.
Hi, everyone. I'm Drew, he, him. As you can see, I was a fellow 2 years ago, 2022, at the Census Bureau. I was in the Economic Indicators Division. So I was working on a project. I worked on a couple different projects, but the main one that I was focused on involved improving an experimental economic indicator that's released by the Census Bureau, tracking monthly state level retail sales. So yeah, might talk a bit more about that later on. Oh, and I was I did the fellowship midway through my 2 year master's degree at University of Chicago in computational analysis and public policy. All right, and I'll send it over to Marcelo.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Marcelo, he, him pronouns. I was a 2023 Software Engineering Fellow. And I worked on like two main things during my fellowship. On the first part, I work on improving like the continuous integration, continuous development lifecycle for engineers. So whenever they wanted to open up a pull request, making sure that like unit test coverage was up to standard, and making sure like linters and other checks that they wanted to make it more efficient for software engineers to do their job every day. And my second part, it was more of like a front end project where I helped develop their React website. So if like someone is checking their status of, if an applicant is checking their status of their citizenship, making sure that like if a pop-up appears that they're missing any field, making sure that it's very clear what they're missing. So making sure that applicants are aware of how their status is looking. So yeah, definitely a positive experience overall.
Wonderful. Thank you all for that. And I will quickly say too, if you have questions specifically for our alums, if you are dropping those in the Q&A feature, please put, if you have a specific question for a specific alum, I should say, put their name in front of your question so that when we go to do questions, I know who to ask the question to. If you would not mind who is responding, then you can just ask the question and we will ask all the alums to respond. But fabulous. I'd love if each of you could tell us a little bit about what your day-to-day looked like in your office that you were working for. What was the team structure like? You kind of told us what your projects, but like what was your day-to-day on that project and what did that look like? And I know that it can vary depending on agency or office or team. And we'll go backwards if Marcelo, you want to start, and then we can go back in the other direction.
Yeah, definitely. So my day-to-day was we had stand up every day. So I was able to see like my team, and I was able to share updates on my project. A lot of the time there's also a lot of pair programming as well. I saw that my team definitely invested in my technical skills as well. They wanted me to grow since I was using a lot of like new like languages or frameworks that I wasn't familiar with. So definitely like that a lot as well. And we also collaborated a lot with like the UX slash like design team in USAS, and also we became really close with like the design fellow in my office as well, since a lot of the times we had like design discussions. A lot of the time the UX team had a lot of feedback on how we can improve the website, make it more accessible. So definitely was able to learn a lot how to drive those discussions. And there was a lot of investment in me to grow my technical skills. So there was a lot of times I did pair programming, and at first it was definitely a new concept for me, but overall it made me feel more comfortable, and I was able to pick up a lot of these new skills and bring them to like what I'm doing now, or just pick up those new skills. So definitely learned a lot. Mhm. Yeah. And I'll popcorn it to Drew.
Yeah. So again, I was in the economic indicators division at Census, and I was working. My supervisor was the division's big data lead. And so I worked very closely with her, got to know her pretty well, and kind of also had the chance to get to know several kind of different other individuals around the office. There was like occasional kind of social calls, but then also like worked with others who I needed to talk to for the project. But I'd say like in general, there weren't too many meetings at my placement. Like there was a good amount of kind of independent time for heads down work. And you know, in terms of the type of work, like I'd say some of what I did was more data engineering-y, like kind of doing this big record matching pipeline to join a third-party data set with other data sources. There's a lot of interesting technical challenges because the scale of the data sets were like huge, so you had to be thoughtful about algorithm runtime, stuff like that. And then I also did some more like statisticsy work, like kind of assessing the impact of third-party data sets of incorporating third-party data sets into the estimates we were producing. And then finally, you know, there was communication aspects, the final presentation, stuff like that. So a number of different kinds of work. Yeah.
Yeah, I worked really closely with my supervisor who ran the whole Smart Cities division for the city of Charlotte. And then I worked really closely with our developers. And then I actually had another fellow in the same office as me. And that was really fun because we had daily conversations and meetings just about how confused we were, what we didn't know, and just getting through it together. Um, but a lot of my day-to-day was like really traditional product management, right? We were solving this problem. So what did ideas look like? What did solutions look like? And then trying to get stakeholder buy-in and then have conversations about technical feasibility, right? Like that's a huge conversation you have, especially in government work, because there's so much more that you are not aware of in terms of context that your team is going to help you remember. And I think the best part of it was just getting to work with so many different people and so many different functions and get that stakeholder buy-in, right? Convince them that this was a problem worth solving and prioritizing. And so that's what it looked like for day-to-day for my main project.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I have one more question for you all, and then we'll pivot to some crowd questions. But looking back, what would you say was the most impactful part of the fellowship for you, and how has the experience or network continued to kind of shape you as an alum of the program, or kind of what you were able to do post-program?
I can go first. I think the most impactful thing for me were the relationships. I still keep in really close touch with the fellow that I worked with, but also my supervisor has become like a career mentor for me. We have regular monthly conversations, and I'm really grateful for that because I currently work in the private sector. I have hopes to transition one day, and she's still in the public sector, right? And so getting that perspective and talking through some of those career plans, having a resource like that has been so incredibly helpful. But also just the network has been really fun in the community, right? I actually recently moved to Washington, D.C., and I just reached out to a ton of fellows I know out here. And that has been so nice to just move to a city and have a couple people that you know really well. And so for me, the most impactful thing, the biggest takeaway was just all the people I got to know and meet and who've become like a big part of my life. I can popcorn over to Drew.
We can reverse the order again. A couple things I guess I'd mention. I definitely felt lucky to have the chance even to work for like a short time on a small part of something that really had very widespread real impact. Like the scale of government is huge. It touches everyone. And so I think that definitely left an impression on me in terms of kind of the potential of working in government technology, in terms of like finding a career that would have impact. And it also, I think it like the experience gave me confidence that I was both like qualified to contribute to government tech, but also could learn a lot. At like, it was kind of there's room for both. And so I think a big takeaway was motivation to join the government full time after I graduated, which I did. And then I think the other piece that I'd mention is kind of the practical side. So, it provided motivation, but it also helped fill in how to go about that. Like I guess I described that as kind of demystifying the federal government. I'd been interested in civic tech and tech policy, stuff like that, but I had no idea what that would really look like up close. And, beyond that, I had no good understanding of all the kind of often quite complicated like logistical aspects, the different hiring pathways, like stuff like that. And so it really helped in terms of just getting a more like realistic view of what that kind of career would actually look like, and a better understanding of like how to go about pursuing it. And I'd mentioned those two things. Totally agree about keeping in touch with the fellows, though. I also live in DC. Not all of us are in DC though, but there are a lot of people in DC. Um, yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I would say like the values that were instilled in me, what I saw in the people I worked with, they were definitely like selfless and they kind of put like the population they were serving first. So I definitely had no experience in working in that. So definitely those values of responsibility and ownership, because the problem that we're solving is a problem that still is happening today, but making sure that at least in just how they compose themselves as well, making sure that they were really passionate about what they were doing. So I think I kind of took those values and kind of like have them with me today as well, in some kind of way. And also just like the investment in my development as well. Like the mentor that I was assigned in my team definitely truly cared about how I was doing. Not even just like technical skills wise, but also just like behaving in like a professional environment as well. And it's someone that I was able to just be myself with and ask any questions at all. They definitely were welcoming of any doubts or any like questions that I had. So definitely the investment that they had in me during the fellowship, definitely appreciated.
Thanks all of you for that, for those responses. We've got a couple of questions from the crowd. And I will start with the one that is the most upvoted, which is, did any of the alumni complete this program during their undergrad? If so, how much experience did they gather before joining this program?
I did it right after I graduated.
Yeah.
So my timing was weird because I finished the fellowship one week and then the next week I started my full-time job. But I had known about this program since starting college. It was one of my goals. I was going to find a way to do it. And so in terms of prior experience, I had one product internship beforehand, and then I'd been a part of a club that was like a software development club, and I was the PM for that. And so I had some, but I was really using this to kind of get more like professional experience in a different setting.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Anyone else anything to add? Drew, I know you were in grad school. Marcel, I forget where you were at.
Similar. So I did the fellowship right after graduating from undergrad. So, and then similar, like my full-time job started like a few weeks after
Yeah.
a very similar path.
Okay, that's what I thought. And I will say, Drew, it looks like you want to say something.
Well, I was just going to say I was in grad school, but I will say a number of other fellows who worked in economic indicators who I met were like in undergrad and continuing in undergrad.
Yeah, and I will say that these three are not necessarily like an indication of what is possible. We've had fellows who just finished freshman year. We've had fellows who are well into a PhD program. There's a really broad range. And so when you kind of ask what technical skills do I need, we're not trying to be like deceitful about what you need. It's just that there's a really broad range of the types of projects and skill sets that fellows can bring to the table. So again, when you're applying, just make sure you're highlighting what experience you do have. If it is club experience like Mahima shared, or you did have an internship, or you've been working on a personal project, there's a lot of different ways for us to evaluate your kind of technical skills and abilities. Let's see, next question. We kind of answered Veronica's question about prior knowledge. It can really vary. Let's see. How did working in government through Coding It Forward differ from or compare to working in the private sector or other experiences that you've had?
I currently work in the private sector. I work in the financial space. Private America is weird. Like they use a specific kind of lingo, and like you all talk in a really weird way. And certainly feels like there's a lot of code switching when I'm in a Teams meeting online. But I do think like the mission is different, right? Like when I was working on this project, it was always about making sure that we were thinking about every single like community member, right? Like, so we were making sure that people who didn't necessarily have like the latest iPhones were still able to find like this information, right? And then in the corporate space, you're always talking about ROI, right? The number of users, your target audience, right? And I think the biggest difference for me is that in the private sector, I can choose my target audience, whereas in the government, we really try to make sure that everyone is part of that target audience in that group. And so I think the mission and sometimes the values can differ. And I think that's the biggest thing for me. But also like just there's a lot of corporate America lingo and stuff in the way you carry yourself, I find to be a little different. And also sometimes I found that the people I worked with in the office like really, really did care about the mission. And for a lot of people in the corporate space, it's really just like a 9 to 5 to help enable other things that they want in life, which is totally okay. But it's different. I think people that I worked with were a lot more mission driven.
Yeah, I relate a lot as well. I also work in the private sector, and I feel like I definitely I work in the finance industry as well. And I definitely do see that in the current company that I work for now, it's not as like I feel like in my host office, people are much more like enthusiastic or definitely wanted to solve their problem they were solving for. But I think I see some engineers in my where I work now, that it's something just like a means to an end for what they want to achieve, or maybe like a stepping stone for what comes next. And I didn't see that at all in my host office. People were very passionate, and you could see it in how they behave themselves. So yeah, just a big main difference that I saw.
Yeah, I also agree with that. So I worked in the private sector for 3 years after undergrad before I went back to grad school, and now I work in the public sector and for the federal government. Um, and yeah, I feel like for me, I and I in general, a lot of people I worked with, like I didn't feel bad about the impact of the work, but that I was doing. I was working in like tech consulting, but I felt like fairly like neutral about it. And so I definitely think that's changed. One thing that I will say that is not that different that I would have expected is, so that job was at like a fairly large company, like I think there's like 20,000 employees or something. And it was the federal government is not more bureaucratic than that. Like that, like I think a lot of large companies are like, it depends on the company, and it depends on the office in government, but like I would not necessarily assume that the like stereotype that the government is like way more bureaucratic than the private sector is always going to be true. If you're talking about versus like a startup or something, probably true, but large company, maybe not.
That's a good point. I appreciate that, Drew. I want to be mindful of our alums' time, so we're going to close out the alumni Q&A portion and just take some other questions that we have popping up in the chat, but want to thank all three of you for joining us and sharing your firsthand experience and what the fellowship was like for you and what you're doing now and how that has influenced it. This is always my favorite part of our info session, so appreciate each of you joining us today. Right. I'm sure the crowd is giving you a round of applause, but we can't hear them or see them. So I will give you kudos. Good seeing everyone, and thanks for joining us. Wonderful. We're going to pivot to answering some questions live. And I will take a peek and see what is left here. I'm sorry if we did not answer your alumni question. Had to keep it pretty short and sweet. Let's see. If my team can help remove some of the ones that were for the alums, that would help me in just identifying which questions we still need to answer. I don't have any background or experience in tech. Can I still apply? My background is in research. Hard to say without seeing what your background has brought you. But if in your research you were doing technical things to acquire skill sets to be able to work under one of our areas of practice, then I would say definitely apply. Our default is usually to tell people to apply, and then you will find out whether or not you are a strong fit. I would say if you have zero experience in any of the areas of practice, it is probably less likely that you will move forward, because we do expect a kind of baseline understanding and ability to do the work. So that is kind of my response. What tech stack is beneficial for a SWE role? There are a couple of different questions about like the software engineering positions and like what skill sets. Like I've said a couple of times during this presentation, it can really vary depending on what the team needs and what the team wants. So when you are applying as a software engineer or any other role for that matter, highlight what technical stacks you're familiar with, what coding languages you're familiar with, and that will help our team assess a baseline level of ability, but then perhaps identify if you will be a fit for one of the projects that our partners are hoping fellows will work on. So that's why we're not saying you need to know Python and C and like all these languages, because not every fellow needs to have the same technical stack in their toolbox. It can really vary. So again, when you are applying, when you're formatting that resume, make sure that you're really showing your project experience, any internship experience that you've had, any personal projects that you've worked on. That will help us best assess whether or not you have the technical abilities to be a part of this program. Can I choose cybersecurity as my focus, even if experience lies in software engineering? Great question. I would love to tell you, yes, do it. However, we are screening for kind of baseline technical ability. So if a lot of your technical ability is in software and you have no cyber experience, I would really strongly encourage you to apply for software engineering. Because if you're applying for cybersecurity, we will be evaluating your skill sets based off of what we need a cybersecurity person to be able to do. So if you have no cybersecurity experience and you select cyber, probably not likely that you will move forward. If you select software and you have software engineering experience, then we can probably see that you are technically qualified. So again, we would love for this program to be something where you can try out a new skill set, but we are looking, unfortunately, for a baseline level of ability. So we would highly encourage you to select whatever area of practice you are most qualified for. This is not a training fellowship experience. We will not be teaching you how to do the things. You will really need to come in and be able to do the work for your office from day one. So please be mindful of that when you're selecting area of practice. Bum, bum, bum. It didn't mention personal project. You like web development. Is that more towards design or suite? It depends on what piece of the web development process you have experience in. So if it's actually coding and executing the development of that website, and that's the experience that you've had, I'd say probably suite. If you have experience designing for a website and doing kind of the UX UI work that it takes to build a website, then I would say that is more likely the case. But again, this is not a training opportunity of a fellowship. We will not be teaching you how to be a web designer or teaching you how to be a software engineer. We need you to come in with kind of some level of experience to be able to do the work. Will I be able to take normal college classes at the same time during the program? Great question. This is a full-time opportunity. You will be required to work 40 hours a week, typically 9 to 5 in your local standard time. So we cannot tell you what to do with the hours that you are not working, but I will say it will probably be difficult to take your college coursework during this program because you will be required to be available 40 hours a week, Monday through Friday. You cannot work on the weekends. You need to be working during standard hours. So that is kind of my answer there. Great. What types of personal projects are preferred? Is it more like web apps or is there a large variety? That depends on what personal projects will best highlight your skill sets and abilities. So again, we don't want to exclude and say only put, course projects or projects you've done at internships where you're welcome to do a personal project, but I would make sure that whatever personal projects you are showcasing your best technical abilities in the area of practice that you are applying for. Crystal's question on what technical skill sets did you find most relevant, useful to have going into your fellowship? I know that was a question for alums, but I will just kind of reiterate what I've been saying, which is what technical skill sets will be most relevant or useful to a given fellow will differ depending on the project, the area of practice. So there's a lot of variety in what skill sets can be valuable to a person. So as you apply, Crystal, make sure that your resume just showcases what your technical abilities are the best. What are the assessments like? Should we study programming interview questions or anything in particular, if that's helpful? We will give more information to the folks who get invited to the video assessment round when that round comes, but very briefly, I will say it is a video assessment. It is not a technical assessment. It will mostly be behavioral questions. However, you should be able to speak to your project experience and kind of what your skill sets are, what kinds of projects you've done, and really support your case in terms of your technical abilities and be able to kind of share that verbally. So it is not a coding interview or a programming interview. It is a video interview that will mostly be behavioral, but again, you should come into that ready to talk about your project experience and your skill sets. Great question, Felix. Does currently getting a certificate in cybersecurity count me eligible under one of the requirements? It depends. Is the certificate that you are getting 12 weeks of live instruction? Then yes. If not, then no. But you can go to our website and see the specifics of that bootcamp certificate requirement. But you said IE undergrad or grad. So like, are you also in undergrad or graduate school? and doing certificate, a little bit confused, but I would say if you are just doing the certificate, go look at the boot camp certificate specifications on our website. And if someone on my team could drop our website and specifically the apply page for everyone in the chat, that would be super helpful, so that folks know exactly what I'm referring to. That is the link to also apply is also on that piece of the site. Is there a way to filter project presentations by area of practice on GitHub? I do not believe so, Grace. I do not think that is a function that is available on GitHub, unfortunately. But a great question and a thing that we would love to have eventually, but no, you kind of just got to poke around and see what you can find. Aria, great question on what have you found to be the characteristics of fellows who are able to make the most of the program? Folks like the fabulous alums you heard from today, I think folks who are really genuinely excited about learning what government work has to offer, excited about contributing their skill sets to an office, but also an understanding that you don't have all the answers and a willingness to kind of learn as you go. I think folks who know that it'll be a quick 10 weeks, but are excited to kind of dig into what that means. Folks who are excited about meeting their fellow fellows and learning more about the government office. I think we're really just looking for folks who are genuinely excited about this particular opportunity, and are excited to kind of see what the program has to offer and be really, really engaged during the 10 weeks of the program. I think different fellows will invest differently in different parts. Some people really spend a lot of time on the mentorship aspect. Sometimes people are really deep in their project. Sometimes we've got fellows who are coming to every single programming session and really soaking all of that in. So I think there are a variety of characteristics that make fellows successful, and it can be in different areas of the fellowship. But I think overall, a willingness to learn and a willingness to know that you won't have all the answers, but that is totally okay. It's a great question. Thanks for asking that. Great. I think I've got most of the questions. Let me see. For some people that have some specific eligibility questions, feel free to just email our team. Gingerly, you have a question about if having a certification in data and design areas of practice will help with consideration. It could, if you feel like those certifications support helping our team understand your technical abilities, then yeah, for sure. If it is a piece of your portfolio that you feel has helped support you be a better data or design candidate, then definitely include that. All this to say, like, there are so many different ways for people to highlight their experience, and our resume template is meant to allow you to kind of have that flexibility. Mauricio, you currently work full-time with an agency in New York City as a data analyst. Do you still qualify? Well, that would depend if you meet our eligibility requirements that we walked through earlier. I will say you likely will not be able to handle working full-time and also doing a full-time fellowship program. So it looks like Cassie is giving you some more information there, but yeah, you have to meet our eligibility requirements, which is being an undergrad or grad student or a recent graduate or a boot camp or certificate grad. So if your full-time qualification is the qualification you're asking about, that does not make you qualified for the program. Great. Someone has a question. Where did that go? Are matches being made on a rolling basis, or will applications only begin to be evaluated after the deadline has passed? Well, no matches are currently being made yet. That is way, way, way further down in the process. If you get invited to interview with one of our government offices. However, the present application that is open will be reviewed on a rolling basis. And I will say, we encourage you to apply sooner rather than later. If you apply at the last second, on the last day, it will take us a very, very, very long time for us to get back to you. So we do kind of review applications in the order that they are submitted. So we are not waiting to review apps until the deadline is passed. We kind of review them in order. And if you wait till the very last day, it means that you will be the very last person to be reviewed likely. So encourage you to apply as soon as possible. I've heard to keep resumes to 1 page, but I saw some of the example templates were up to 2 pages long. Is it okay to go on to the second page? Young, do you want to pop off mute and answer that one for them?
Yes, so you should be able to use up to 2 pages. Our limit on the application will be 2 pages. Some of you might have multiple experiences that spilled over to the second page, and that's more than okay with our template.
Cool. I'm aware that this is a set in stone fellowship program, but is there any flexibility around meetings or accommodations for religious holidays? Or if we can't make it to a meeting? Yes, it is a set in stone fellowship program. We do have limited flexibility. However, accommodations and religious holidays are really important to us. So if that is the reason, like you are sick or there is an emergency or there is a religious holiday, we are happy to make those accommodations. You kind of just work with our team one-off. If you can't make it to a meeting just because you can't make it to a meeting, we usually ask you to find a way to make that happen. But we are happy to work with you. Like if you need to make an appointment or something and that's the only time your doctor could schedule, like those sorts of things we are not inflexible about, but that is really on a one-off basis. And we ask that fellows are honest with us about their needs and that they are not just saying that you have an appointment just because you can't attend a meeting, if that makes sense. But yes, very much here to accommodate any religious holidays that folks have and happy to kind of work with the government office that you're placed on to make sure that you can take that time as you need. For the undergrads that got accepted, which year are they normally in? Anywhere from freshman to senior year. There is no standard year that we are looking for. Different fellows come in with different backgrounds and experiences. So don't be discouraged if you are early on. It is possible that you too could become a fellow because we have had folks who have just wrapped up freshman year who have been really awesome fellows. On the resume template, great question, Peggy. Are we being asked to only include experience and not education or personal information contact info? Yes, correct. That is part of the standardized resume. Not to worry, we will be collecting that information on the application, but the reason it is not on the resume template is that we want the folks reviewing your application to not be looking at that information when they're evaluating your abilities. So we are trying to make this as equitable of a review process as possible. And so that's part of why you won't see that on the resume. So no need to include your name or your education. That stuff will be collected on the application and should not be on the resume template itself. Grace, not quite sure what you're asking. You said, can specific matches be made if collaborations are made ahead of time with other offices that could collaborate? I think what you mean is if you find a government office that wants to have you be hired, and then can we guarantee? That's not how we do things. You apply through our application process. We screen you. We have government offices who request fellows, and that's kind of how we work it. If you have a government office that is interested in hiring a fellow, we'd love to talk to them. So feel free to send them our way. Are there examples of resumes of successful fellows from previous years? The example resumes that we have on our website are drawn from past resumes of successful fellows. So it is not an exact resume of a past fellow, but it is meant to show you what a successful fellow resume looks like. Great question. Great. I think I've gotten most of them. Someone asked, will LeetCode styled questions be involved with the host office during the interview? More information to come on the host office interview if you make it to that stage. Different host offices do their interviews in different ways, so it will likely not be a coding interview, but we provide more information as folks get to that stage to make sure that you're really well prepared to partake in that interview. What does the timeline look like? Timeline is also on our website, approximate timeline. There's also a question about when people typically hear back. That approximate timeline is also on our website. All of this is affected by the number of applications we receive in a given year. So we give you a broad range. I do not have a specific date that you will hear back from us, but Any updates that we have for applicants will be on our website, and we will also send emails as we have them about updates that we have on the application process. So great questions. That information and all the information that we have to share was either shared in this presentation or is on the website or on our FAQ on the website. We do our best to be communicative so that you know where you're at in the process. So we have not forgotten about you. If you don't hear back from us immediately after submitting that application, we just got a large volume of apps to go through, and we will keep you posted as we have updates to share. Great. When you will get a recording of this by Cassie, if you can, it looks like you're typing, but you can also just unmute.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Cassie will send you the email tomorrow. Great question. We will end the session on this question from Mahendra saying, is it possible that even if we get into a fellowship, we might not be matched with an internship? The fellowship is the internship. You are not a fellow until you have been sent an offer, and you are not a fellow if you make it to the government interview stage. You can reach all the way to the government interview stage, interview with a government office, and still not be sent an offer. This is not like you become a part of the cohort and then you get matched to a government office. It is one long hiring pipeline. So until you have an offer from our team, you are not a fellow, you are not a part of the fellowship. You are only a part of the fellowship program once you have received a formal offer from our team to work with the government office. So great question. There always seems to be a bit of confusion around that. It is a fellowship program, but the hiring pipeline, all of it, you don't get to be a part of the cohort and then we match you. It is all one part of the process, and you are not a fellow until you have received an offer from our team to work with a specific government office. And with that, we will wrap up. I will say thank you again to our alums who joined us. Thank you to my team for helping pull together all this information and answer what looks like almost 80 questions today. Applications are due next Sunday, October 27th. Don't miss that deadline. We are so grateful that you are excited about being a part of this program, and we are super excited to see your application. So thanks for spending this hour with us today, and we hope to see your application soon. Unless you've already submitted, then we are excited to have already seen it. But thanks everyone. It was great to have you here, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Take care.